Hey guys, happy Baby Name Monday. I hope you're good. It's the last Baby Name Monday of the year, of the whole of 2020, and it is such a fun one. I'm doing something a little bit different. I've been chatting to teenagers who love baby names, because I don't know about you, but probably here because you're naming a baby. I do name lists every single week for about 4 years now, I figured out, for inspiration, for ideas, and because I basically love names, and I always have since I was so young. I was always listing out for names and writing them down in the back of my diary back in those days, but teens these days are equally as obsessed, and they write them all down on their notes pages of their iPhone. And so I thought, we always hear the names that are being used right now, or we can predict trends for like a year or two ahead. But what are teenagers loving? What is going to be the biggest shifts when in 10-15 years more children are born? And oh my goodness, it was so fascinating. The trends have totally flipped, some of them, as we would expect. Teens are not going to like the names that we like, that are naming our babies now, because they've got a whole different influence, a whole different perception of things that they're listening to. The names are great. We had literally 800 names. So I've been working with this group of teens. All your names are going to be up on screen in a minute, and then we did a survey where we put them all into a survey and then did like an online vote, and these are the top 15 girl names. So I'm going to do boy names next, but yeah, do have a listen. These are teens revealing kind of their secret baby name lists, and it's absolutely fascinating what trends have totally changed. Spoiler alert, there's no Oliver, Olivia, Emily's, Liam's, Sophie's, none of that, all totally stripped off. So it'll be interesting to see when these names start to take top spot. But there are lots of O sounds still popular for girls, like Olivia. I think that Olivia's just been the top spot because it's almost a perfect name. It's got kind of grandeur, it's got beauty, it's a bit edgy with the V, but you guys have found some really good alternatives to it. What's also fascinating is the biggest trend for this year was nicknames as first names. So the whole top 100 was packed with IE endings, Lottie's, Millie's, Evie's, tons of them. And that doesn't appear one. These are the names that Millie's, Evie's, Sadie's, Lily's are all going to be picking, and they're not following form. They are going very different. So yeah, let me get on with the list and let me know which of these you absolutely love. One that really surprised me, came up on so many teen lists, is the name Juliet. It came up so many times. It's such a popular name with teens. It's only at number 590 here in the UK, and it gets hardly any chatter on online forums. It's a name I personally love and was on my name list when I had my first baby, so I was really kind of personally happy to see that it was kind of coming out. I don't know if that's because of the influence of Romeo and Juliet either getting stronger, because Juliet was obviously 14 in the play, or that it's fading a little bit, and so people are shrugging off the association a little bit with Romeo and Juliet, and it's just coming into a full force name of its own. Juliet actually means youthful, so I thought it was so fitting for this teen list, and it's just a gorgeous one. I looked a lot on forums and spoke to people called Juliet, and somebody was saying, yeah, you do get a bit of like, I'll be your Romeo. Cheese-tastic, because it is so famous as a name, and obviously she was one of the most famous people to talk about names. Shakespeare was through Juliet, what's in a name, talking about their surnames. So yeah, beautiful name, and I love the fact that it's not the shortened form, it is Juliet, sometimes with a double T-E was coming up as well. A name I'd never ever heard, seen on any list, is totally unranked, was really popular with teens. I came up on a lot of teen lists, and that was the name Winnica. So it's a rare flower name. It is a December orchid, a Christmas orchid. So it might be because it's the time of year that it was kind of sticking out to people, because it's obviously Christmas list kind of time. But Winnie as a nickname is booming through the charts right now. We talked about it just the other week how it's one of our most popular nickname as first name names. So the teens are looking for the long, classic, traditional form for Winnie, and they're going with Winnica, which is really unusual. It's got that strong K, so it almost sounds kind of Scandinavian, doesn't it, with that strong K. And actually through this list I saw a lot of those strong letters, strong feminine names, lots of T's, P's, K's, curly curs coming back into style. So we want kind of like long traditional classic names like Winnica. As a sort of flip to the nickname Winnie, is a bit more serious, it's a bit more classic. When I did a little word cloud, I put all these names into a word cloud, and the thing that came up throughout all of them was that they were very classic, very traditional, and even the words formal came up, or upper class came up. And I think that's because we're kind of shrugging off that thing of giving girls little girly names and going a bit more stronger, a bit more bolder. The teens are. So yeah, good on you teens. I love Winnaker and I love what we're doing with it. But there are some really unusual ones still. So Celine was on so many lists and got a lot of votes when I asked people to poll on these top names. Celine, and I was like, that's unusual. Again, I've never said it on a list. It's not so highly ranking. It's outside the top 2,000 in the UK, but it means moon. So it's the Greek goddess of the moon was Selene, where the Roman goddess of the moon was Luna, which is a name that has massively had its rise up. So yeah, teens are taking it there a little bit further again and going with Selene. It's really gorgeous, isn't it? It's got that soft L sound, which we still really like for girls, but it's got a bit of a beauty in its simplicity and very rare and unique now, but it could be one 10, 15 years time. Imagine if I'm still making these videos. Imagine, would I be? Imagine when I stop. Imagine the last ever Baby Name Monday. Oh, getting ahead of myself, but yeah, think about the name Celine. I think is absolutely gorgeous. The next name is Eliza. So Eliza is quite an unusual sound, and what's interesting with Eliza, it's really popular with teens, but on other forums, it's quite polarizing. So some people on forums are saying, I really dislike the sound of Eliza. It is, of course, a derivative of Elizabeth, but there's many, many names that sprung from the form of Elizabeth, and Eliza really stands up as its own name. Most famous for Eliza Doolittle, My Fair Lady, which I absolutely love. And maybe the fact that it is a bit disliked makes it a little bit edgy, maybe a bit of an edgier choice. I don't know. What do you think of Eliza? Do you know a little Eliza? The average age of somebody named Eliza now is 7. So you can see that also for teens, they won't have the associations of a mum called Eliza or a teacher who was called Eliza, or probably a girl in their class, because the average age is 7. So it's kind of interesting also to see that when you take away the associations, because that's really what puts us off names, isn't it? When you've had like a horrible person in your class named that. I loved this name, and it was the name Elliot. So Elliot for a girl, so it's obviously a non-binary, gender-neutral name, and I was expecting to see a bit more of that, but there were quite a few on the list. Or what we liked was the longer names shortened with a kind of a more gender-neutral or non-binary nickname was a real trend. So that was interesting to see. So the EL sound though, so Elliot was by far the most popular, and I personally love it because I have, as I just said, I've got a bad association with a boy Elliot. Gutting, because I do really like the name. I like the ET association as well, but schoolboy ruined Elliot forever for me. But I can see myself using it for a girl, and I like the double TE ending. It means strength and truth, so it's got this nice moral compass to it, which I think is going to become, I think meanings, I feel, are becoming even more important as we go through the generations, because we're looking for something that really stands for something. We're looking to name with purpose rather than just copying on name through the generations a little bit. So I can see why Elliot also has appeal with that. But interestingly enough, no one's going with Lottie, they're going with Elliot, but there were so many other EL names. So I wonder if the Ellies kind of like or the L's do kind of like it, but I'm going to read out the rest. There was Eloin, which is perfect with the O and the EL. Eleanor was chosen a lot. Evelyn was on a lot of lists as well. So there was a lot of these EL sounds. I think that could be something that's maybe going to take away from Olivia. Maybe it'll be the EL sound coming in. There's just tons of them, and they're all really, really gorgeous. Elliot is actually a Scottish clan name originally. Quite a few clans actually from all over, but the oldest I could find was a Scottish clan, who were the Elliot clan, and so it was kind of like a surname as well that became a first name, and they were quite kind of like a daring, boisterous clan, so they were known as like cattle thieves, so it was quite interesting heritage to the name as well, Elliot, but I can see it so beautifully for a girl, and so can a lot of teens. The next one is the name Cecily. So Cecily was really liked, and again, that's so traditional. It almost sounds old-fashioned, doesn't it, Cecily? But it's one that's really highly ranked at the moment. It's got a funny meaning because it means blind, but then on a few forums they were saying, or a few websites, they were associating that as blind to your own beauty. So they're trying to make it sound better than it is, or just not have blind. It's at number 651, but I was really interested to see that it is actually already on the rise, but it's a bit of an outsider choice. I always feel bad when I say these ones because somebody always says, no, don't mention my baby name. Cecily, a Welsh name. So interesting to see that was really global as well, this poll that we did. Cecily coming up. She was also the patron saint of musicians, which I thought was a really nice link. If blind kind of fits you off, you can be like, oh, you're Cecily after the patron saint of musicians. But again, a very, very classical, traditional, almost formal name being picked up by the teens. Natalie was voted for quite highly. Natalie, and so Natalie is such an 80s name, so it would have had its day in like the early 80s. So looking into the list, it was kind of peaked at around 1982, and then it's kind of been on a slow decline since then, but it's still around. It's at number 377 in the UK. Again, it's quite linked to Christmas. It literally translates as Christmas Day in some languages, but it's quite rare, and it's kind of not old enough to have kind of mum or grandma status either, so it's kind of maybe got like big older cousin sister status. Is that a status you can have? Natalie. But it's interesting to me because there are so many 3-syllable names on this list, so we do like long feminine names. It's always been quite a thing that we like. Natalie, but it's not sort of super soft. It's got the strength of the T in it as well, so it's a really interesting name. 6 is the most common age for a Natalie in the UK at the moment, so again it's kind of devoid of associations for the new generation, which is really, really fascinating to me. But there are lots of these 3-syllable names on the list. So there was Novalie, which I personally really liked, Genevieve as well, Tabitha, Imelda, Agatha, Bernadette, Kennedy. There was a whole long list, and a lot of them were 3-syllable girl names. So I wonder if we're going to get away from this shortening of the names, go more for the longer length names for in a few more years when there's that regeneration, because we're seeing names getting shorter and shorter and shorter on our name list. So it's a really fascinating trend to look at. One name that's popular now and looks to stand the test of time with teenagers is the name Aurora. So Aurora is so newly popular actually, that it's kind of just started to come out of the trends, but I do wonder if by the time these teens do come to have their children, it might be a little bit almost common, almost have had its day, because it's so popular at the moment. But what was nice about it was a lot of people were mentioning they loved Aurora, particularly with the nickname Rory. So I love that combination. I think if you are going to have a long feminine name, it is nice to have a slightly edgier nickname like Rory. Similar to that was the name Prairie, which a lot of people really were liking, and it's totally unranked name. It means kind of meadow, grassland, more in North America. We don't really use that anywhere else around the world, so you can see it being a lot more easy to use, and it's got the IE ending, but it's a bit like a Marie or a Maria or a Mary, but Prairie, a bit more sort of outdoorsy nature name, quite hippie-ish. I obviously like it because it's quite hippie-ish, but I think that where flower names have just become so used, the daisies, rose, lilies, poppies, you know, those were the names that really, really boomed in this last kind of decade. I can see us going a little bit more. Even trees have become really, really well used. So new nature names, we've done a whole list on them before called New Earth, which I'll link below, which is the new outdoors basically, and outdoors is always going to be a source of inspiration. Nature names have been around since the beginning of naming, and Prairie seems to be one that's capturing the heart of the teens. A similar Briar. So it's a really interesting name, Briar, and again, reading a lot of forums of people named Briar, and there's a great forum I'll put, it's called behindthename.com, and you can read user comments who are called that name, and I love it. It's a really good place to go and have a little nosy. There was a few people called Briar who were like, I don't like my name, because it was interesting, the girls on there said that it sounded masculine, and then there were a few boys on there called Briar who said it sounded feminine. So there wasn't many Briars who really loved their name, so I do take that as a warning, and I think that visiting that website is interesting because Briar sounds really fascinating as a name. Obviously Briar Rose was Sleeping Beauty again, so it's got that Disneyness to it, but Briar Rose has been chosen as well as it. Rachel Bilson has a little daughter, Briar Rose, so you could go with Briar Rose, but it just feels so obvious to me. But I wonder if there's a new theme emerging. I could do a video on kind of like wild nature, I was thinking, because Briar is a thorny rose bush, so it's got that bit of edge and spike to it, which I think is why people are liking it. It doesn't feel like an obvious name choice or an obvious nature choice, but think about the names that have really boomed lately, things like even Ivy. Ivy's got that association kind of like poison ivy, or Cove, which is going gangbusters at the moment. It's kind of like a rocky little cove, and then Briar seems to fit within this wild nature theme, so maybe that's a future trend. Let me know if you would like to see a wild nature name list, because I've literally started writing it in my head. There were 10 babies named Briar last year, so could be onto something there. Freya was massively popular as well. Freya is already popular, it's at number 10 in the UK, but I wonder if that's starting to come up around the world a little bit more. She was a Norse goddess. I'm in Sweden at the moment, which is why I point Norse goddess. And yeah, she was very, very strong. It actually means lady. It translates as lady, but Freya is a strong name. It's not too gentle, even though it's got the Y. It's kind of got a strength to it, I think. I personally hear it like that, but I know everyone's a bit subjective to it. But I love the fact that Freya is getting more use. Now, one more, the last one that was getting tons of votes was the name Colette. I love it. Such good name list, isn't this? Picked by teens, Colette. I just feel like these names have such classic beauty to them. You know, they're not fast fashion, they're not kind of throwaway names, they're really thought about, and they're like not even vintage, they're almost timeless. A lot of these, like some of them I know, like Prairie and Aurora and things, could be like got a spikes and could be kind of like led by your age a little bit more, but Colette, so stunning. And I know a Colette, and it is really, whenever you hear her name, you always remember it. Like I'd heard of her before I even met her, and then I was like, oh, Colette, you're Colette. You know, really is a kind of standout name. It means people of victory, so again, a very strong, pioneering woman's strong name for the teens. And I love that it's got the O and the T and the strength of it as well. They were not going for such, you know, the O is in there, but it's got like a real kind of power to it, I think. So those were teens' guilty pleasure names revealed from their iPhone lists. Crunch the numbers, push them back out there. It's really fascinating. I absolutely loved it, and it's given me so many new food for thought just to hear them from you guys. So let me know what you think of this name list in the comment section below. I'd love to know your thoughts on these names, and also any other trends that you can see emerging from looking at these names, having a think about it, that I could do a list on. And the boy list will be coming up soon. I will pop on screen now everybody who helped to contribute to this video, and if you'd like to contribute to a video, just make sure you're subscribed and make sure to go over and check on my community tab, because that's how I post all of the little things you can get involved with. And I'm going to announce the winner of my giveaway, because I'm giving away 2 baby name consultations with me. I have my first one tomorrow from our first winner, one next week from our second winner, and I said I would do 2 this week. So picked at random, winner number 1 for the giveaway is Ashley Wright. So Ashley, do email me. My email is in the description box below, and we will set up a time to have a half-hour baby name chat, whether you're naming a baby or you just want to gossip baby names, celeb names, things like that. And I'll pick winner 2, and winner 2 is Charlotte Milne. Charlotte, do also get in touch with me. I love doing these, and if we have fun doing these giveaways, I will keep them coming. Thanks so much for your support during 2020. Completed 2020. I will be raising a huge glass of something bubbly to you guys tonight on New Year's Eve. I've had so much fun doing these name lists for the last 4 years, and there's some new stuff coming in 2021. I'm sure you can guess what it might be, but it's just been such a pleasure to have you guys here the whole year, and I love involving you in it, and I just love that I found my little tribe online who love baby names as much as me. Who'd have thunk it 4 years ago, when I thought I was the only person doing baby names, and now it's like so lovely to have all you guys here and to be part of your pregnancy journeys as well. Do let me know any birth announcements in the comment section below. Thanks everyone for getting involved. Boy list coming soon. Don't forget to hit the little bell, smash that like button, all the stuff YouTubers say that I don't know what to say. Lots of love, guys. Bye.